Hi, I'm Lauren Joe at namemybusiness.co, and today is launch day for this channel and for the business itself. And so I wanted to record this and tell my story of my practitioner journey and how I found the soul contract reading system and how I got to the place of launching my business. So today is March 5th, 2023, and that is such a significant date in the journey because 1 year ago today, on March 25th, 2022, it was the first day of my first practitioner training to be a soul contract practitioner. And it's so wild, really, when I think about it, because earlier in March of last year, I took a webinar with Nicholas David Nahn, who is my teacher and the author of Your Soul Contract Decoded. And I was sharing to him that I was interested in so many things and what should I do, or I didn't know where to move forward or what to do next. And he gave me the advice of really sitting in meditation and feeling out which of my interests was the way forward. And of course, me being me and being very analytical and mental, I did a little bit more thinking through than just that. But sure enough, later that month, I took the first training course, and here I am a year later launching my business. So let's just go back a little bit further to how did I find this system? So I found this system very early in my awakening. I had my spiritual awakening in November of 2020. I think it would have been about December that I first discovered the system. And how I discovered it is pretty interesting. So I had just started to go on YouTube. When I started my awakening, I at first was like, don't go to the internet because you know nothing. And you also know that you can't trust everything on the internet. So how will you know what sources you can trust or not? So at first I was like very against going online because I had no idea how I would trust anything. I can be very naive and gullible. I know that about myself. So I finally was kind of going on YouTube and I was watching some videos by Rebecca Rosen, who's a medium, and she was mentioning soul contracts. And I was like, that's really interesting. And I would love to learn more. And I wonder if how I could know what's in my soul contract. So I went on to my library app, Libby, and I searched soul contracts. And because my library, it's part of a very kind of hippie community, there was a book, Your Soul Contract Decoded. So this is Nicholas's book. And it was available as an ebook through the library. So I downloaded it and I started to read it. And it talks about, it's talking about the phonetics of names and the sound of names. And I'm like, I studied linguistics in college, I'm very familiar with phonetics. This seems perfect. So I, manually calculate my chart. I'm reading about it in the book. I'm thinking the system is so interesting, so cool. And then nothing really moved forward at that time. But then last January 2022, I kind of rediscovered the system again. I was like, that was so interesting. I want to read that book again. So I re-downloaded it from the library, was reading it again. And real at that point, I was kind of having a resurgence in interest in numerology generally. So I had found someone who did videos on Pythagorean numerology that I was reading about or watching, and so interested in that. During this whole time since my awakening, I've been studying astrology, been practicing tarot. So I really thought I would become an astrologer. That was kind of some of my thinking at that time. But come March, when here I am interested in astrology, interested in Pythagorean numerology, and now interested in the soul contract work, this is where I was having that moment when I was talking to Nicholas of, I don't know, which one of these to do, or I don't know how to move forward. I'm so interested in all of them. I don't want to let any of them go. And I'm sure many people watching can relate to that, especially if you're neurodivergent or multi-potentialite, I forget is how it's called. Somebody told me that word once. I was like, oh my God. When you just have all these interests, right? We don't want to let them go. So again, his advice to me was to focus, which is fitting because last year was universal year 6, and the 6 in the soul contract reading system is about focus. So how fitting in the year of the 6 of focus, he's telling me to focus. So how did I come to the decision of choosing to study the soul contract work? Well, I really this is where I got a little bit mental and analytical and logical about it. And I thought with astrology, there is so much that you need to know before you're at a place where you're able to give readings, because it's just such an in-depth system, very complex. There's just so much you need to know just to have the basics down. And I was like, if I'm realistic, I probably know half of what I need to know. And since early in my awakening, I'd been like, I want to be a spiritual practitioner. I'm feeling drawn. I know that this is my path. And again, this is where I'm saying, like, I know that this is my path, but what exactly, right? So by thinking about how much studying I still needed to do for astrology, and I was really ready to take more forward action, I decided that was not going to be the path forward. And I still love astrology. I still read about astrology. I still study astrology, but that's now just for my personal enjoyment, or to share with others, but not in the sense of trying to become a practitioner in this moment. Never say never. So then I was really thinking about Pythagorean numerology versus this other system, the soul contract reading system. And how I really made up my mind between those two is that I realized I love sharing this information with people. And what I had been doing at that point with Pythagorean numerology is I had reached out to some friends and I said, hey, I think this is really cool. Can I calculate your chart and then send you some information about it? And I've had some friends who said yes. So that's what I did. I would calculate their chart. And then there's a practitioner that I really like here on YouTube, Katie Ewers, Soul Explorer. I was like, I should have written it down before, but Soul Explorer. She's great. I love learning from her. I've had a reading from her. She's excellent. And so I would send people her videos. I would calculate their chart myself for the practice because I thought it was so fun. And then I would send them her video. And that was great. And I realized there was nothing I could do. There was no source like that I could just send people to learn about their soul contract chart. And I was like, I was lucky enough that I could get it from the library, but what am I going to do? Say to someone, hey, can I calculate your chart? And now go buy the book if you want to learn anything about it, because I can't tell you anything about it. I don't know. That was not really going to work. So I decided, hey, if you want to share the system with people, which you think is so cool and so interesting, you need to know what you're talking about. So that was really my big main motivation. Also, secondly, to say, once you do know what you're talking about, you can help create those videos that right now don't exist, where you're sharing information about these numbers and you're creating a resource that other people can share. So yeah, this seems like the right path. So you could say that that was a little bit of a feeling it out, but also for me and my my mental brain, it was also a very logical approach and decision. Now, with that having been said, I absolutely feel like I was meant to do this. This was absolutely the path I was meant to take. And like I said, it was 1 year ago today that I took that first course. And I could not have imagined myself being here in this place. I was, again, very motivated to become a practitioner. So I could definitely see myself being a practitioner. But I thought I might just do birth charts. I didn't even know necessarily that I would do all 3 levels of training. There's actually 3 levels of training that I've done. I knew already before that first training, I would want to do the second training, because of the second training is where we would learn more about the relationships, as we call it, overlay charts, really looking at how these numbers interact together. Because I just from reading the book, I wanted that information, because the book, just like our first training, is very focused on giving an introduction to the numbers and how to decode a birth chart, how to really break down a birth chart. And I was like, I know that there's more to the system than that. The book does talk about that. I was like, and I want that information. And Nicholas, he also mentioned, during the first training, that the third training is about business names. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe that sounds interesting. At that point, I was really interested in the third training because during each of the trainings, we receive a transmission of the energies of the numbers. So I was definitely the kind of, that type of person where I was like, I want that complete set. I want that full transmission. And that was at the time early on my inspiration or motivation to want to take all of those trainings. Now, with that being said, when I got to the third training, which, and I didn't take that course, everyone started to tell me, Lauren, like, this is your talent. Like you have a gift. You are gifted at this. And again, that third level of training is where we did business names. They're like, you are gifted. And, there's that part of me that's like imposter syndrome and inner critic that's just like, no, oh, you're just being nice. But then Nicholas even said, again, Nicholas is the teacher who has practiced this for 3 decades, 30 years. He wrote the book on it, literally. And he said to me, Lauren, you were born to do this work. So when the writer of the book on a topic tells you you were born to do the work, you just shut that imposter syndrome down, you shut down the inner critic, and you listen. And so right away, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this my business. I am going to do this. And here I am, 1 year from the day of the very first training, launching my business, namemybusiness.co, which will help people find names for their businesses or learn about the energy in the names of the business they already have. So that is my story. I hope I didn't talk too fast. I know I'm a quick talker, but thank you for joining me. And I'm so looking forward to sharing more information with you all here, not only about myself and my spiritual journey, but of course about this very beautiful system. So thank you.